On Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023, it was announced at World Headquarters that Brother Anthony Morris III is no longer serving as a member of the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses. That is the announcement that millions of Jehovah's Witnesses around the world almost missed, letting them know that one of the governing body members, the leaders of the religion, was no more. And since then, not only has Tony Morris been disappearing from our collective mentality, it has also been disappearing from JW.org. The cult purging itself from its leader in a complicated balance of power that has been like nothing modern Jehovah's Witnesses have experienced today. But this left Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses puzzled alike. What did this mean now that the leaders of the religion are so recognizable? How would the cult manage this moving forward? And where is Tony Morris? All of those questions have now been answered. So let's go through the answers and see what they mean for the future of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Tony wasn't the first leader of the Jehovah's Witnesses to get removed of the governing body. Edward Chitty and Leo Greenless were both removed from their positions, and Ray France left his position as well after his dissolution with the religion. But back then, governing body members were just the chairman of the organization, safely tucked away under the disguise of wisdom, anonymity, and self-importance. Now,
Bah. Goodbye, little sheep.
things have changed, and Tony Morris is, for better or for worse, as much of the religion as the Silver Bible, which is why him being removed out of the governing body was shocking and left everybody without knowing what to make of it. All we could do was overanalyze the announcement. We saw that the announcement originally called him Brother Morris, which seemed to indicate that he was still considered a brother, and therefore hadn't been disfellowshipped from the religion. And for a while, that's all we had. Until slowly but surely, Tony started being deleted from JW.org itself, with his videos slowly but methodically being removed from JW.org, including,
"We do not need to be coerced into giving. We gladly use our money to support kingdom activities. But when it comes to giving, it's an individual responsibility, as the verse says, resolved in his heart or her heart, not grudgingly," and the footnote addresses the word reluctantly. So it's not like we embarrass people, beg them, look, you're well off, why aren't you giving more? Well, that's not their business. So that's not our business. We have to resolve in our own heart. So while we discuss money, we never come across like we're putting people and trying to get them to even grudgingly give just so we get the money. That's not this organization. Of course, Christendom, they are experts at begging for money. So we love Jehovah. We want to be the kind of person that he loves. And you notice that beautiful expression, God loves a cheerful giver. One translation put it nicely, God loves people who love to give. And that's true. So we want Jehovah to love us. So this money we might have, whatever amounts, depending on our own personal circumstances, we're happy to give.
and also including,
Some wonder, and maybe you've had the experience of someone talking to, particularly if you're an elder, do they have the heavenly hope? And some are sincere. They've gone through difficult times in their life, maybe in the truth for a few years, and they're looking for some advice and direction. But notice what the Watchtower stated, that if you're wondering, in fact, if you are wondering whether you have received the heavenly calling, that would in itself indicate that you have not received it. Straightforward. So something to keep in mind to use whenever that comes up. It would be done in a kind way. But if they're wondering about it, they haven't received it. Now, sometimes some brothers will ask anointed ones, how do you know you are anointed? Imagine saying that to the Apostle John. John, how do you know you're anointed? Well, read my first letter there that Jehovah inspired me to write, and that'll answer it for you. Now, the anointed may choose to attempt to answer, or they might say that's personal. Now, the second article, as I mentioned earlier, addressed this issue, and it's a good thing to keep in mind. The second article in paragraph 10 stated regarding appropriate respect for those whom Jehovah chooses to anoint, and I'll quote, "We would not ask them personal questions about their anointing," end quote. Pretty clear. So God forgives you if you've done that in the past.
And my personal favorite, of course.
The wicked will perish. The enemies of Jehovah will vanish like glorious pastures. Particularly, they will vanish like smoke. So I thought this would be a nice memory aid to this verse stay in the mind. Here's what Jehovah's promising. As Jehovah's enemies.
This in itself raises a lot of questions, like, is the information that Tony Morris shared no longer considered part of the doctrine? Is, for instance, the way that he dehumanized apostates no longer the hateful view that Jehovah's Witnesses should have? And most important of all, why would you listen to governing body members if they can be removed and their talks along with them at a moment's notice? This surprised no one. Jehovah's Witnesses are known for their secrecy and their obsessiveness in controlling the narrative. Jehovah's Witnesses have an innate aversion of sharing anything that puts the cult in a neutral or even worse, negative light. So the silent removal of Tony Morris wasn't that surprising. Many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses had already backed up his videos from the website in preparation for this exact thing, putting them in a unique position of being the protectors of spiritual food while Jehovah's organization itself was trying to destroy it. I also remember a letter going around telling people not to ask about Tony Morris to his family when his son was going around with the Gilead graduation, but I can't seem to find that anymore. Once all his morning worship videos was scrubbed from JW.org, we got news that an unseen morning worship talk was supposed to appear in the May 2023 JW broadcasting episode. Once the videos leaked in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, where Tony, oddly enough, talks about how the governing body was being attacked by Satan.
These things I will give you if you fall down and do an act of worship to me. Well, Jesus' quick response said to him, "Go away, Satan, for it is written, it is Jehovah your God you must worship, and it is to him alone you must render sacred service." Just do an act of worship. He didn't say continuous worship. One act. Say, one act, and I'll give you all of this. Say, now, you can see he's wrapped in smoke when we have all this other knowledge of Scripture. If you are a son of God, he brings up in these tests, he knows that Christ Jesus was the firstborn of all creation. Now, you're just so consumed with ambition, you put that out of your mind. If you're a son of God, this is the only begotten Son of God, and you're going to try to tempt him to worship you. You talk about arrogance, see, puffed up with pride. He really apparently thought maybe the temptation's going to work. So he couldn't see himself or Jesus clearly because of his beclouded and stupid state of mind. Now, I know he's not going to appreciate my morning worship. The governing body's already being targeted like never before by this wicked one, so that's the way it is. We stand by Jehovah's side, and we recognize we worship Jehovah, the true God, period.
It's hard not to read too much into what he said with him leaving like that. Was he talking about the normal apostate attacks, like the consequences for their shunning and CSA policies? Or did he mean something more personal? Perhaps significant disagreements within the governing body itself. We may never know for sure. What we do know is that Tony's removal looked to be quite sudden, especially if they were so far into the production of the May 2023 broadcasting that Tony had to be replaced out of it. And more recently, they have started to remove Tony Morris from photos and older videos where he was featured, including the old Jehovah's Witnesses Faith in Action movie from all the way back in 2010. This shows a silent, slow, and systematic approach from the religion to remove Tony Morris completely from anything and everything he had ever touched, from morning worship talks to old videos and photos. And it shouldn't be too surprising to us. After all, that's how the religion handles every mistake they've made. They just cover it over. Like when they say that Armageddon was gonna come in the 20th century, only to change it in the volume, or when they misquoted a scientist and just removed the quote without apologizing once a scientist complained. However, deleting Tony like this is the largest deletion they have tried to do till today. And I think that gives us a clue of how Tony left the governing body, since I can't imagine he left in good standing after seeing how they're trying to rewrite history and retroactively remove him from everything he had ever been in. It's almost like they want Jehovah's Witnesses to forget about Tony Morris and his existence and to never talk about him again. That's definitely not what you do to someone when they leave simply for a health reason. No, Tony had to leave in disgrace. But until we had more details, we just didn't know how in disgrace he had left. Not as much as to be disfellowship, since they still call him Brother Morris, but enough to strip him from his elder position, enough to kick him out of his home at Bethel, where he had presumably lived for well over a decade. Most of these questions were recently answered when 5 months, almost to the dot, after Tony Morris had vanished, Phil from the Blue Envelope channel used his amazing detective skills that he had used to discover how Stephen led is wealthy among many other fascinating details to find Tony Morris. Turns out Morris was kicked out of Bethel and is now living in North Carolina, which, as some had speculated, given Tony's familiarity with the area. He was the first one to find this document, which is a public document on the Robeson County, North Carolina website that anyone can have access to. This is the deed for a house purchased in Lumberton, North Carolina on the 28th of March of 2023 by no one other than the Religious Order of Jehovah's Witnesses, one of thousands of companies that Jehovah's Witness religion uses. And we can find a lot about the arrangement that the religion made with Tony Morris, since the grantees are Tony Morris, his wife, and the religion in this life estate, which practically means that they can live there for as long as they want or until they are no longer living. And once they're not living there, the property rights will revert back to the religion. This shows us the hypocrisy of the religion in more than one way. For starters, you can see the benefits of being a governing body member, where you can get kicked out and retire to a house that's worth $250,000, all paid by the religion you used to lead, even if you leave dishonorably. That is not what happened to thousands of Bethelites when they were scaling down the print shop and they were sent unceremoniously back to their congregations without any bonus or further care from the religion, despite them doing nothing wrong besides working in the wrong department for free. But you can also see the hypocrisy of the religion preaching that the end is coming and that we are in the last of the last days, while setting up a deed with a former governing body member, planning what to do with the house they bought for him after he dies. This level of planning of buying Tony Morris a house where he can live in until he dies, only for the rights to be reverted back to the religion when that happens, which they will most likely be able to sell at a profit later, is discouraged to every member. Every member knows not to plan too much ahead for the future because Armageddon is right around the corner. Which means things like investing in your future by pursuing wealth or by pursuing higher education are frowned upon, at least by the followers. But it's a rule when it's done by the religion. So what can we learn about the Tony Morris situation? Well, quite a bit actually. We can see the benefits of being in the privileged class of the Jehovah's Witness religion, a governing body member who got kicked out of Bethel probably for things that would have gotten an average Bethelite disfellowship. Instead, the governing body is the only group of people that the religion seems to actually care for, providing a home for one of their own where they can live in rent-free until they die. Besides Tony probably having a lot of savings because of all of the green handshakes that he gets, or at least I guess used to get. I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out that he's also getting a stipend from the religion, sort of like a ultra special pioneer. And we can see the way this secretive religion acts. trying to Orwellianly rewrite history and retroactively removing every single appearance of Tony Morris to invite secrecy in their followers instead of curiosity. Because that's how cults like this one operate. Make your following silent instead of curious. Because when they become curious, that is when they wake up. So what do you think about Tony Morris and his preferential treatment among Jehovah's Witnesses? Do you think the secrecy of the religion is working? Or do you think it's causing more of a Streisand effect now that the governing body members are so public? Are they gonna pull it off with this secrecy among Jehovah's Witnesses is what I'm saying. Let me know what you think, and thank you so much to my Patreons. You can join them if you're an absolute rock star and you want to see more videos like these. The more support I can get, the more time I can spend researching, editing, and recording these videos to try to shine light on this cult and the horrible things it does that no one seems to actually care about.